All right, so really quickly, somehow I'm going to try to sum up an incredible week in just a few minutes. But thank you, first of all, to all of you who were praying. If you've given it all directly to support Nicaragua, or if you've given it all to Horizon Church, you have been a part of our trip last week and the awesome work that God is doing. I did have someone ask me yesterday, it is not too late to give. We have not fully paid for the trip yet, as costs were still coming in. So if you would like to do that, anyway, directly or buying some of that sweet Horizon merch, you can talk to me. Just some really brief stories. So this is the group that went from our church and then also a few from GraceCity Church, which has been a long-term partnership in supporting in Nicaragua. Now, one of the really neat things is that this trip was so impactful that OrphaNetwork, while we were there, decided, you know what, we're going to change our name. That's right, they changed it. All because of us, right? No, not entirely. So this was a long journey for them of discovering, all right, we're no longer working with orphanages. We're doing kind of work from the ground up in nourishing kids, families, mothers, potential fathers, from before kids are born, from when they're born, from early childhood development, from nutrition and feeding centers and teaching and being in community and job training, right? They have that full scale, and they have officially changed their name to Nourish. That's going to take a lot of getting used to for us to say not OrphaNetwork, but Nourish. But in either case, we got to witness all sorts of phases of that nourishment while we were there. Just to help make it personal, primarily our financial support goes to one church in school. It's called Club Cristiano La Esperanza. It's Christian Club of Hope, if you will. At the helm are Pastor Shayla and Pastor Roberto, right in the middle. Just incredible, honest, strong men and women of God who were just so encouraged to allow us to be part of their journey. Now, while we were there, we didn't build any houses. We didn't do anything all that tangible that maybe you would expect from a normal mission trip. We weren't handing out tracts. Most of what we were doing looked like this, where it was just entering into what God is doing in their lives, hearing their stories, hearing their victories, celebrating their victories, mourning their challenges, being with them in those challenges, praying with them. And for them, it would have been totally worth it for us to just go to pray with them, which definitely is convicting for us. But it was an incredible opportunity for us to, more than anything else, witness and experience what God is doing, which really looks like seeing lives transformed, hearing stories about people who came from poverty and all of a sudden are doctors and journalists and lawyers and have a hope for a future that they wouldn't have necessarily had. So time and time again, we heard so many stories like that will come out more and more in the weeks that come. Now, this picture is not only just like totally easy because they're adorable, right? That's not the only reason I put that. One reason why I love this photo, and actually I didn't even share this on the trip, we realized later that in our home visits, so we go to some of these homes where, very tiny cinder block homes or covered in corrugated steel, right? Not much space. And many folks were just so blown away to welcome us into their homes with hospitality, just that, again, we would hear their story, we would enter into their story and pray with them. Last year, we got to meet a family of 7 where the father and his 2 oldest sons were working hard every day, going down to the market to sell plantain chips. And he showed us the whole process very proudly and said, I just wish I could provide more for my family. And we assured him, no, you are doing it. You're providing an example. Now, 3 of these kids are in his family. So last year, we got to pray with the 2 smiliest girls in this picture, and then the young boy, Daniel or Danielle. Last year, he was being monitored for malnutrition. And listen, you can say what you want. I don't know how big his muscles are, how strong he is now, but that child is not malnourished anymore. And that child is full of joy. Again, family of 7, house couldn't have been more bigger than 20 by 20, but you wouldn't know it, right? You wouldn't know it from the joy they exude and the joy that we receive just to be a part of their story. So this is just one tiny story of so many more that'll come out. I'm talking with the team about how we want to capture those stories and share. Feel free to ask questions. Even if you never set foot in Nicaragua, even if you never travel, just know that you are a part of this partnership. We were overwhelmed when they would come up to us, the kids would thank us, the staff would thank us, and we're like, I didn't do anything, right? That's how it feels. but even in our finances and in our prayerful partnership and in our encouragement, we get to be part of what God is doing in an amazing way in Nicaragua. So thank you again for partnering in that. If you have more questions, please, please, please let me know.
Hi, I'm Kira, and I'm redeemed and loved by Jesus. It was good to see you. So I'm here to talk about our trip that 10 of us took to Nicaragua, 7 from this church, 3 from a partner church. So if you've been at Horizon a while, you may have heard of an organization called OrphaNetwork. They have recently, within the last couple of months, rebranded, and now they're known as Nourish. But they have a mission to support kids and families in Nicaragua who are facing poverty. So we've partnered with them for like 15 years, for a long time. And some of you have been to Nicaragua to see what they're doing on the ground. So 7 of us went in July, and we're taking turns giving little snapshots of what our experience was to share to the congregation. So just broad strokes. The thing that I love about Nourish is that they actually take local churches. They work strictly through local churches in Managua, and they partner churches with churches in the States. So Horizon is partnered with 3 specific churches that we have a long-standing relationship with. So that is the background there. So I was thinking about how to capture my experiences, and especially with the passage of time, it's hard. So I actually wrote down a recounting of an interaction to me that was very moving. And I have 2 disclaimers. One is that I apologize in advance for any of the Spanish names that I butcher, which I will do. And then also I refer to a woman here whose name is not her actual name. I've changed her name. So I'd like to share this experience that I had. Just real quick, this picture will become clear as I read. I'm just gonna read. We pulled up to the neighborhood on the outskirts of La Chirica, just as the sun was starting to descend. I might have to put this down. Yeah, that'd be great. Pulpits are functional. Not trendy, but functional.
Figure it out later, Dan.
All right. That's going to help me be able to see my words there. Thanks. Thanks, guys. Okay, we pulled up to the neighborhood on the outskirts of La Chirica, which is the city dump, just as the sun was starting to descend. If you were a government official for the city of Managua, it would be important to note that this wasn't technically a dump. The sanctioned dump had been walled off and restricted to foragers since the government came under intense scrutiny for the conditions of its impoverished citizens, many of them children, who made their living harvesting what they could from the refuse. Inside the walls, official state-sanctioned sanitation workers now processed the waste, piled in sprawling, smoking heaps. Outside the walls, where we pulled up in our 15-passenger van, a winding community of makeshift homes had sprung up. Here, trash had started to accumulate once more, as though the dump were a fetid river that couldn't help but flood its own banks. Dogs sniffed. I'm going to try to read it, but I told Ryan if I just lose it, I'm going to have to give it to you because it's not going to be intelligible. Dogs sniffed among the piles, panting in the heat. The smell of rot made me catch my breath. We were visiting the neighborhood with a pastoral team from Club Cristiano La Esperanza, a local church that had started a feeding program and a school to support the thousands of children who formerly lived at La Chirica and the surrounding community. We swatted at flies as we made our way down the dirt streets, past the makeshift homes built from corrugated metal and other salvage materials. Finally, we stopped at a house with bundles of plastic containers neatly stacked outside. This was Rosa's house. A ministry team member approached the door and knocked. Rosa emerged from inside and smiled shyly as she welcomed us to her home. She appeared to be in her mid-30s. Her curly black hair was cropped short, and she wore a light-colored t-shirt and jeans. Her 2 daughters were with her, a toddler balancing on her hip, and her teenage daughter lingering behind, looking curiously at the group of 10 sweaty foreigners on her front stoop. She greeted us in Spanish and thanked us graciously for the food basket the pastoral team handed her. Through the translators, she invited us to ask questions. We stood in a large semicircle, and I couldn't help but feel awkward, like an intruder. Still, Rosa seemed comfortable and at ease as she answered the questions our team asked about her life. She works hard to support her family, salvaging copper from discarded batteries and wires. She's intensely thankful for her church community. Her family attends the feeding program, and her daughter is continuing her education. As she spoke, one of the translators leaned towards me. "This work is very hazardous," he said under his breath. "The materials she has to work with are very toxic." As he spoke, I noticed the whites of Rose's eyes were completely red. My eyes wandered down to her hands, still hugging her 2-year-old to her hip. They were stained a solid black, along with the entirety of her arms up to her elbows. She continued to chat with us until the sky lit up a blazing hue and the sun dipped toward the horizon. We wrapped up our visit and piled back into the van to make our way to the church for an evening service. An hour later, we were sitting inside the sanctuary of Club Cristiano La Esperanza, clean and showered, together with around 30 members of the community. As the familiar, albeit Spanish, notes of the worship song Holy Forever washed over me, I couldn't stop thinking about the day as a study in contrast. The stench of rot and burning garbage, the roaming dogs, the flies, incessant flies, landing on our arms and faces, being swatted away only to land again. Rose's thankfulness, her humble gratitude and openness, her love for her children, so clear and apparent, her baby girl, the same age as my son, her work ethic and determination, her joy, her faith. Glancing around the sanctuary, I noted our hands, collectively raised in worship. Rose's hands, a few rows back, stained black, then scrubbed clean for church, raised to Jesus. My hands, tanned from afternoons at the pool, manicure just starting to chip, covered in sin, as red as scarlet, but washed as white as snow, raised to Jesus. Our voices in unison as we sang the same song in praise of the same God, all of us called sons and daughters of the King, destined for one eternal home. I met and worshiped with Rosa for one afternoon in Managua, but Rosa's life and my life will one day intersect again. On the day when Jesus will come to judge the world with justice, when he will wipe away all tears, all mourning, all death, when he will right every wrong, raise up the lowly, and humble the proud, when finally, at last, the old order of things will pass away.
So my name's Sarah. While we were in Nicaragua, I had the opportunity to speak with a group of women. This is a picture of that. That from 2 churches about self-esteem. We read Psalm 139 and wrote affirmations. And I got to tell them a bit of my own story. At the first church, I was wondering if they were getting it. Like, I was wondering if I was doing a good job explaining, or if they thought that this was worthwhile, or if they thought that I was weird. And then one of the women started participating. And it took a bit from the first church, but eventually most of them participated and eventually wrote something on their affirmation card. And eventually, at the end, they came up and they said thank you, and multiple of them gave me hugs, and it was great to see the Holy Spirit moving in that way. I also had the opportunity to pray for a family while we were there. I'm not the most comfortable public prayer, but I felt that God was asking me to take a step out in faith. And I suppose, technically it wasn't anything special, but it was special to me because it was the first time I had led a prayer like that for a family in a group setting. This is Yara. She was a teacher at the first church we went to. We bonded over lunch when she said that she was a vocalist for their praise band. She asked me if I had any tips on how to sing better, and I told her no. And then proceeded to tell her everything Leroy had taught me. And we had a mini voice lesson right before we took this picture, and she had asked me to send her this picture, so I hope she got it. This last picture is a picture of the dump. And I didn't take this picture, but I vividly remember this landscape. And I remember thinking, isn't it amazing how God's beauty can be seen over something so ugly, for lack of a better word? Like, the dump isn't pretty. It's not, it's smelly. It's not somewhere you want to be. But look at that sunset. It's beautiful. You can't see it as good on the screen. But it's really pretty. It was much better in person. So, yeah, I'm going to leave you with that.
I've heard the who am I before. As a matter of fact, recently, I felt called to go to Nicaragua. Beth did a Lectio Divina up here for her as part of her sermon. And it's when you imagine yourself in a place and you welcome Jesus into it. And what does he say to you? And I imagined myself in the living room, never a place that I actually want to be, but it just keeps happening when I do these. I'm always in the living room. And I went to open my front door, and Jesus is there, and he says, "You're going to Nicaragua." And I said, "Okay, sure. Someday." And then I get a text from Tyler. "Hey, we're going to Nicaragua this summer. We're looking for people to join us." Oh, no. You want me to go now? I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. I spend the summer with them. I don't want to leave for a week. I've never been away from them for that long. A week in Nicaragua? I don't even know if I believe in global missions. I'll be honest. There's so much here that we could be doing. Why are we serving down in another country? But God told me to go. And I went to my husband and I said, "Hey, God wants me to go to Nicaragua." And he said, "Well, if God called you to go, then we're going to make it happen." Which is also a testament to the change that has happened in us. But I went. And it was the second or third day, and I met this woman named Shayla. And you have heard about Shayla and Roberto. They lead a church. She leads the school also of Club de Cristiano de la Esperanza. I get it? Okay. It basically means Christian Club of Hope. And each time that we went to a different site, we would pray over the leadership. They would share their story, and we would pray. And I noticed something in Shayla that was hesitant. And I think I noticed it because it was like me in my hesitancy. She was sharing about her husband and how he has been speaking into these different areas of the church, different areas that needed clarity. And yet she said, "I'm here to support him." And I looked at her and I was overwhelmed with the Spirit, teary. And I said, "No, you have a voice. You are being called to this community as well. Who am I? Who am I to speak into somebody else's life?" And yet that's what I felt called to do. And she looked at me, and I actually understood her before the translator even spoke. And she said, "You're an answer to prayer." So humbled. But God is calling all of us to do something. And it doesn't have to be up here in some big way. You are in your communities. You're in your neighborhoods. You're in your classrooms. You're with your friends. All of that is for a reason. And you have a voice. Use it.
Good morning. I'm Liz Kent, and this is my oldest son, Asher. He's 10, and we got the amazing experience to go to Nicaragua with the team a couple weeks ago, and we are going to tell you a little bit about our experience there. So Asher's going to start and just tell you a couple things that he really liked about being on the trip.
I really liked being with my mom because she's just amazing. And this picture is of us at church at Tuesday night, and we wore matching because I said to my mom when we were packing, I want to wear matching because I love you, and yeah. And then this is us before dinner one night. We were watching a movie with these masks on, and we were snuggling on the bed. Yeah.
We gave the sheet masks to a group of women, which I'll talk about in a second, and let them put them on while we were talking to them as a way to just like let them experience feeling pampered. So we had a couple extra we brought back to our room that night.
Mm-hmm. And then this is me filling up the piñata with Mr. Tyler and Abigail, because we were gonna let some of the kids hit the piñata and break it open. And this is me with a bunch of kids, and they wanted a picture, so that's that. And that I actually have the same shirt on I have today.
You planned that, didn't you? So this is the whole group, just in case you don't know who went. There were three people from GraceCity and 7 of us from Horizon. This is in the airport on the way there. And one of the things that, like Asher said, it was very special for us to get to go together. When we realized there were no other kids going, I asked him, do you still want to go? And he said yes. And he hung. We had to get up at 2:30 in the morning to take our flight there. And we got home at 2:30 in the morning on the way home. So it was a lot of traveling, but he was a trooper. One of the things that I really loved about this trip, this was probably the 9th mission trip that I've ever been on, and I love that Horizon has this partnership with OrphaNetwork, which is now Nourish, and that they have a partnership with a church and a community that they've gone back to, that Tyler has met these people, Ryan has met these people before over years of time. And so this is Roberto. He's one of the pastors of the church that we actually sponsor from Horizon. And Asher promised him that he was going to come back to Nicaragua. So we're going to be on another trip at some point going back there. But I love just that it's this longevity and that there's this plan to continue the partnership with them, because so many times on this kind of thing, you come in and you leave and then you never know what happens to the people. So it was so beautiful to see what they've been able to build and to see their vision for what they want in the future. This is at one of the other locations that we went to. We did a women's group, and we did some crafts and some affirmations, and then the sheet masks. And I got to talk a little bit about being an entrepreneur and what that can look like for them. I'm a therapist and business coach and own 2 businesses, and so when Tyler said, you can talk about entrepreneurship, I was like, I don't know how that is going to relate to these people that live in this incredibly impoverished community. But when I was looking out at them and thinking about just the power of women and mothers coming together in community and the way that they could support each other and take things that they already know how to do or make and turn that into a living for their families, it was just a really beautiful way to see how we're all kind of connected and how that theme can run through particularly women. There's a lot of single moms in these communities, and just the way that they support each other and support their families. And then this is Asher playing soccer. So despite his long description of what we did here, he was very engaged with the kids, and I know he mentioned a few times that it was really hard with the language barrier. Our Spanish is very limited, but he jumped right in and got to play soccer with the kids. And again, just like a universal reminder of like kids are kids and how much fun he could have just playing soccer, even though they couldn't really speak the language to each other. So we played a lot of soccer. It's pure luck, pure luck. And then this is another one of the communities where we served food. That was one of the big parts of what we did. They have these feeding programs that OrphaNetwork has helped establish. And again, just being able to be a part of this, to be a part of it with Asher, for him to see what other people live like, and again, to see him just like jump in with a bunch of adults and be able to be so willing to serve was just like such a gift to my mom heart. And such a beautiful experience for us to have together. So I think being able to disciple him and to have this time and know that my husband had held down the fort at home with our other kids, and to be able to do all of that was just such an incredible experience. So we're very thankful that we were able to be a part of it.
Dad did a good job.